In the winter of 1988, Detroit was a city caught between its industrial past and an uncertain future. The auto industry that had built the Motor City was hemorrhaging jobs, leaving behind empty factories and broken dreams. Yet, in the affluent suburb of Bloomfield Hills, life moved at a different pace. Here, corporate executives and business leaders lived in sprawling estates, insulated from the economic turmoil that gripped the inner city just 20 miles away. It was in this world of privilege and power that 26-year-old Rachel Thompson moved with quiet confidence. A rising star in Detroit's financial sector, Rachel had earned her MBA from Northwestern University and quickly climbed the ranks at Meridian Investment Group, one of the city's most prestigious wealth management firms. Colleagues described her as brilliant, dedicated, and unfailingly professional. She had a gift for numbers that impressed even seasoned Wall Street veterans, and clients trusted her with their most sensitive financial decisions. Rachel lived alone in a modest but well-appointed condominium in Birmingham, a community known for its tree-lined streets and sense of security. She drove a silver Honda Accord, practical and reliable like everything else in her carefully ordered life. Friends knew her as someone who planned every detail, from her weekly grocery shopping to her 5-year career goals. She was the type of person who never missed appointments and always returned phone calls promptly. On the evening of November 8, 1988, Rachel left her office at Meridian Investment Group at approximately 6:15 p.m., according to building security records. She had stayed late to prepare for a client presentation scheduled for the following morning. The security guard remembered her usual polite nod as she passed through the lobby, briefcase in hand, her burgundy wool coat buttoned against the early winter chill. What happened next would remain a mystery for nearly 3 decades. Rachel's absence was first noticed the following morning when she failed to appear for her 9 a.m. client meeting. This was unprecedented behavior for someone known for her punctuality and professional reliability. When calls to her home and pager went unanswered, her assistant contacted building management to request a welfare check at her condominium. Birmingham police officers arrived at Rachel's residence on Maple Road at 11:30 a.m. on November 9th. They found her silver Honda Accord parked in its assigned space, undisturbed. Her mail from the previous day remained uncollected. When management unlocked her door, officers discovered a scene that would haunt investigators for years to come. The condominium showed clear signs of a violent struggle. Furniture was overturned, personal belongings scattered across the living room floor. Rachel's briefcase was found near the front door, its contents spilled and seemingly searched through. Her purse remained on the kitchen counter, wallet and credit cards untouched, immediately ruling out robbery as a motive. But Rachel Thompson was nowhere to be found. The initial investigation revealed troubling details about Rachel's final weeks. According to colleagues at Meridian Investment Group, she had been working on a particularly sensitive audit involving several high-profile clients. The nature of this work required her to review confidential financial records and investment portfolios worth millions of dollars. Some co-workers later told police that Rachel had seemed unusually stressed in the days leading up to her disappearance, though she had not shared specific concerns with anyone. Detroit Police Department assigned Detective Frank Morrison to lead the investigation. Morrison, a 20-year veteran of the force, had worked hundreds of missing persons cases, but something about Rachel's disappearance troubled him from the beginning. The evidence suggested she had been taken against her will, yet there were no witnesses, no ransom demands, and no clear motive. The case quickly attracted media attention throughout southeastern Michigan. Rachel's photograph appeared on local news broadcasts and in newspaper headlines. Her parents, who lived in Grand Rapids, made emotional appeals for information about their daughter's whereabouts. The financial community in Detroit was shaken by the disappearance of one of their own, and Meridian Investment Group hired private security to protect other employees. As autumn turned to winter in 1988, the investigation began to stall. Despite extensive searches of wooded areas around Birmingham and interviews with dozens of potential witnesses, police found no trace of Rachel Thompson. The case that had begun with such urgency gradually faded from public attention, joining the growing file of unsolved disappearances that plagued Detroit during those troubled years. What investigators could not have known was that the answer to Rachel's fate lay hidden within the very financial records she had been reviewing in her final days at work. The discovery that would change everything came 3 weeks after Rachel Thompson's disappearance. On November 30th, 1988, a maintenance worker at Belle Isle Park was conducting routine cleanup along the Detroit River shoreline when he noticed something unusual, partially concealed beneath fallen autumn leaves near the water's edge. According to police reports, the worker immediately contacted Detroit authorities upon recognizing what appeared to be human remains. The Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office was called to the scene, and by late afternoon, investigators had confirmed their worst fears. The remains were identified as those of Rachel Thompson through dental records provided by her family dentist. Detective James Sullivan, who had taken over the case from the initial investigating officer, arrived at Belle Isle as the sun was setting over the Detroit skyline. Sullivan, a 15-year veteran of the Detroit Police Department's Homicide Division, had worked numerous cases involving the river, but the location troubled him immediately. Belle Isle was not a random dumping ground. Someone familiar with the area had chosen this specific location deliberately. The medical examiner's preliminary findings, released several days later, indicated that Rachel had died as a result of blunt force trauma, according to official reports. The condition of the remains suggested she had been deceased since approximately the time of her disappearance in early November. Authorities determined that the body had been moved to the location where it was discovered, meaning the actual crime had occurred elsewhere. This revelation shifted the investigation's focus back to Rachel's final days and the circumstances surrounding her work at Meridian Investment Group. Detective Sullivan began conducting detailed interviews with Rachel's colleagues, supervisors, and clients. What emerged was a picture of a dedicated professional who had stumbled upon something that may have cost her life. According to statements provided to police, Rachel had been assigned to conduct a comprehensive audit of several high-value investment portfolios in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. This work required her to review transaction records, verify asset valuations, and ensure compliance with federal securities regulations. The audit was part of Meridian's preparation for an upcoming regulatory review by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Colleagues told investigators that Rachel had been working extended hours on this particular project, often staying late into the evening to review complex financial documents. Her supervisor, according to police records, had praised her thoroughness and attention to detail. However, several co-workers mentioned that Rachel had seemed increasingly concerned about discrepancies she was finding in certain accounts. The investigation revealed that Rachel had been scheduled to present her preliminary audit findings to Meridian's senior management on November 10th, just 2 days after her disappearance. The presentation materials found scattered in her condominium included detailed spreadsheets and handwritten notes that suggested she had identified significant irregularities in several client portfolios. Detective Sullivan's team spent weeks attempting to reconstruct Rachel's final audit work. They discovered that she had been reviewing accounts belonging to some of Detroit's most prominent business leaders and wealthy families. The portfolios in question contained investments worth millions of dollars, and Rachel's notes indicated she had found evidence of what appeared to be unauthorized transactions and questionable asset transfers. However, the investigation hit immediate obstacles. when Meridian Investment Group's management claimed that many of Rachel's working files had been corrupted or lost due to computer system problems that occurred shortly after her disappearance. The firm's executives cooperated with police inquiries, but maintained that client confidentiality agreements limited what information they could provide without court orders. The Detroit Police Department obtained search warrants for Meridian's offices and computer systems, but the digital forensics technology available in 1988 was limited compared to modern standards. Investigators were able to recover some of Rachel's work, but crucial files appeared to have been permanently deleted or damaged beyond recovery. As winter deepened in Detroit, the investigation began to focus on identifying which specific clients and accounts Rachel had been reviewing in her final weeks. This process proved challenging, as the financial industry in 1988 operated with far less transparency and digital record-keeping than would become standard in later decades. What investigators did not yet realize was that Rachel's meticulous work habits and her practice of keeping backup copies of important documents would eventually provide the key to solving her murder, though it would take nearly 3 decades for technology to catch up with her foresight. The investigation into Rachel Thompson's murder initially followed several promising leads that would ultimately prove to be dead ends. Detective Sullivan and his team cast a wide net, exploring every possible angle while working under intense pressure from both the media and the Detroit business community. The first major line of inquiry focused on Rachel's personal life. Investigators conducted extensive background checks on her romantic relationships, friendships, and family connections. According to police records, Rachel had ended a long-term relationship approximately 6 months before her death, leading detectives to closely examine her former boyfriend, a software engineer named David Chen, who worked for a technology firm in Troy. Chen voluntarily submitted to multiple interviews and provided a solid alibi for the evening of November 8th. Phone records and witness statements confirmed he had been attending a company training seminar in Chicago during the relevant time frame. Despite this, investigators spent valuable weeks verifying his whereabouts and examining his financial records for any possible connection to Rachel's work at Meridian Investment Group. A second investigative focus centered on the possibility of a random crime. Detroit in 1988 was experiencing high crime rates, and investigators initially considered whether Rachel might have been the victim of a carjacking or robbery gone wrong. This theory gained traction when detectives discovered that Rachel had stopped at a gas station on Woodward Avenue approximately 30 minutes after leaving her office on November 8th. Security footage from the gas station, though grainy by modern standards, showed Rachel purchasing gasoline and entering the convenience store. However, the video quality was insufficient to identify other customers or vehicles in the area. Investigators spent months tracking down individuals who had used credit cards at the same location around that time, but none of the leads produced viable suspects. The investigation took another turn when detectives learned about a series of break-ins that had occurred in Birmingham and surrounding communities during the fall of 1988. The break-ins typically targeted upscale condominiums and apartments, with perpetrators apparently searching for cash and easily portable valuables. The pattern of disturbance in Rachel's condominium initially seemed consistent with these other crimes. However, this theory began to unravel when investigators realized that nothing of value had been taken from Rachel's residence. Her jewelry, electronics, and cash remained untouched. The disturbance appeared focused on her work materials and personal papers rather than items with monetary value. This realization should have redirected the investigation toward Rachel's professional activities, but crucial time had already been lost pursuing other angles. Perhaps the most significant investigative misstep involved the handling of evidence from Meridian Investment Group. When detectives first requested access to Rachel's work files and computer records, the firm's legal counsel argued that client confidentiality agreements prevented them from providing certain documents without specific court orders. The process of obtaining these warrants took several weeks, during which time the firm claimed that routine system maintenance had resulted in the loss of some digital files. By the time investigators gained full access to Meridian's records, many of Rachel's working files had been archived or deleted according to standard business practices. The firm's IT department maintained that the data loss was coincidental and related to scheduled system upgrades, but this explanation would later prove highly suspicious to investigators who revisited the case decades later. Detective Sullivan's team also struggled with the limited forensic technology available in 1988. DNA analysis was still in its infancy, and the evidence collected from Rachel's condominium and the Belle Isle crime scene yielded minimal useful information. Fingerprint analysis produced several unidentified prints, but without a suspect to compare them against. These clues provided little immediate value. The investigation was further hampered by jurisdictional complications. Rachel's condominium was located in Birmingham. Her workplace was in Detroit, and her remains were discovered on Belle Isle, which fell under Detroit Parks and Recreation jurisdiction. Coordinating between multiple police departments and agencies slowed the flow of information and created gaps in the investigative timeline. As 1989 began, the case file had grown thick with interviews, reports, and evidence that seemed to lead nowhere. The initial momentum had dissipated, and Detective Sullivan found himself with more questions than answers, unaware that the key to solving Rachel's murder lay hidden in financial records that would not be properly analyzed for another 27 years. By the spring of 1990, the Rachel Thompson investigation had effectively stalled. Detective Sullivan had exhausted most conventional leads, and the Detroit Police Department was facing pressure to allocate resources to newer cases that demanded immediate attention. The city's homicide rate was climbing, and active investigations took priority over cases that had grown cold despite months of intensive work. The official case file remained open, but practical reality meant that Rachel's murder joined the growing stack of unsolved cases that haunted Detroit's police headquarters. Sullivan kept the file on his desk for several more months, occasionally reviewing witness statements and evidence reports, hoping that fresh eyes might reveal something previously overlooked. However, no new leads materialized, and by late 1990, the case was transferred to the Cold Case Division. The impact on Rachel's family was devastating and enduring. Her parents, Robert and Helen Thompson, had relocated from Grand Rapids to Birmingham shortly after their daughter's funeral, hoping to stay close to the investigation and maintain pressure on law enforcement to find her killer. Robert, a retired automotive engineer, spent countless hours at the police station requesting updates and offering to assist in any way possible. Helen Thompson became a vocal advocate for victims' families throughout southeastern Michigan. She organized support groups for families of unsolved murder cases and worked with local media to keep Rachel's story in the public eye. Every November, on the anniversary of Rachel's disappearance, Helen would hold a memorial service at Birmingham's Greenwood Cemetery, where Rachel was buried. These gatherings drew dozens of community members and served as reminders that justice remained elusive. The financial community in Detroit was profoundly shaken by Rachel's murder. Meridian Investment Group implemented new security protocols for employees working late hours, including mandatory security escorts to parking areas and enhanced building access controls. Other financial firms in the area followed suit, recognizing that if someone as careful and professional as Rachel could become a victim, no one was truly safe. The case also highlighted broader concerns about the safety of young professionals in Detroit's business districts. The Detroit Chamber of Commerce formed a task force to address security issues affecting the financial sector, and several firms relocated their operations to suburban office parks that offered better controlled access and parking security. Media coverage of the case gradually diminished as months passed without significant developments. Local television stations that had initially featured Rachel's story prominently in their evening newscasts began mentioning it only on anniversary dates. Newspaper coverage similarly faded, though the Detroit Free Press continued to include Rachel's case in periodic reviews of unsolved crimes that had shocked the metropolitan area. The lack of resolution took a particular toll on Rachel's colleagues at Meridian Investment Group. Several employees left the firm within a year of her death, citing concerns about their safety and the traumatic impact of losing a respected colleague. The firm's management struggled to maintain morale while dealing with ongoing questions from clients about the security of their investments and personal information. Perhaps most troubling for investigators was the realization that crucial evidence might have been lost forever. The computer systems at Meridian Investment Group had been upgraded twice since Rachel's death, and backup files from 1988 were no longer accessible. Physical documents related to her audit work had been archived according to standard business practices, but many had been destroyed after the required retention period expired. Detective Sullivan retired from the Detroit Police Department in 1995. But he never forgot Rachel's case. In interviews years later, he would describe it as the investigation that haunted him most throughout his career. He maintained personal copies of key case files and continued to review them periodically, hoping that advancing forensic technology might eventually provide new avenues for investigation. The case officially remained active in the cold case division, but with limited resources and no new leads. It received minimal attention. Annual reviews confirmed that no significant developments had occurred, and the file grew thicker with administrative updates rather than investigative progress. What no one could have predicted was that Rachel's own meticulous record-keeping habits would eventually provide the breakthrough that investigators needed. Though it would take nearly 3 decades and revolutionary advances in digital forensics to unlock the secrets she had unknowingly preserved. The breakthrough in Rachel Thompson's case came in an unexpected way in March 2015, 27 years after her murder. Detective Maria Santos of the Detroit Police Department's Cold Case Unit was conducting a routine review of unsolved homicides when she discovered something that previous investigators had overlooked. Hidden in Rachel's personal effects, which had been stored in evidence for nearly 3 decades, was a small address book containing what appeared to be backup notes written in Rachel's distinctive handwriting. The address book had been catalogued as personal property in 1988, but investigators at the time had focused primarily on the obvious evidence from her condominium and workplace. The small leather-bound book contained phone numbers and addresses, but more importantly, it included detailed notations about financial discrepancies that Rachel had discovered during her final audit at Meridian Investment Group. Detective Santos, who specialized in cold cases involving financial crimes, immediately recognized the significance of Rachel's handwritten notes. The entries referenced specific account numbers, transaction dates, and dollar amounts that suggested systematic embezzlement from client portfolios. Most crucially, the notes included initials and coded references that appeared to identify the individual responsible for the unauthorized transfers. The investigation was reinvigorated when Santos partnered with the FBI's Financial Crimes Task Force, which had developed sophisticated methods for analyzing decades-old financial records. Federal agents were able to cross-reference Rachel's notes with archived banking records and Securities and Exchange Commission filings that had been digitized in recent years. Advanced computer analysis revealed a pattern of fraudulent transactions that had continued for years after Rachel's death. According to federal investigators, millions of dollars had been systematically diverted from client accounts at Meridian Investment Group between 1987 and 1992. The scheme involved creating false investment records and transferring funds to offshore accounts controlled by a senior executive at the firm. The investigation led authorities to focus on Harold Brennan, who had served as Meridian's chief financial officer from 1985 to 1993. Brennan, now 72 years old, had built a successful consulting business after leaving Meridian and was considered a respected figure in Detroit's financial community. He served on several non-profit boards and had been recognized for his charitable contributions to local educational institutions. However, digital forensics experts working with the FBI were able to trace electronic communications and financial records that allegedly connected Brennan to the fraudulent scheme that Rachel had been investigating. According to court documents filed in 2015, investigators found evidence suggesting that Brennan had been systematically embezzling funds from high-value client accounts and using sophisticated methods to conceal the theft. The breakthrough came when investigators discovered that Rachel had made copies of key financial documents and stored them in a safety deposit box that she had rented just weeks before her death. The box had remained unopened since 1988, as no one in Rachel's family knew of its existence. Bank records eventually led investigators to the safety deposit box, which contained detailed evidence of the alleged embezzlement scheme. DNA evidence also played a crucial role in the case's resolution. Advances in forensic technology allowed investigators to extract genetic material from evidence collected at Rachel's condominium in 1988. The DNA profile was entered into the national database and allegedly matched samples that Brennan had provided during a routine background check for one of his non-profit board positions. According to prosecutors, the evidence suggested that Brennan had confronted Rachel about her audit findings on the evening of November 8, 1988. The alleged encounter had escalated into a violent confrontation that resulted in Rachel's death. Authorities believe that Brennan then moved her body to Belle Isle in an attempt to make the crime appear random. On September 3, 2015, Harold Brennan was arrested at his home in Bloomfield Hills and charged with first-degree murder in connection with Rachel Thompson's death. Federal prosecutors also filed charges related to the alleged embezzlement scheme, which they claimed had defrauded clients of approximately $2 million over a 5-year period. The arrest sent shockwaves through Detroit's business community, where Brennan had maintained a reputation as a pillar of integrity for more than 2 decades after allegedly committing murder to conceal his crimes. The arrest of Harold Brennan in September 2015 marked the beginning of a complex legal process that would bring both closure and renewed pain to those affected by Rachel Thompson's murder. The Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, working in coordination with federal authorities, faced the challenging task of presenting evidence that was nearly 3 decades old to a modern jury. Brennan's legal team, led by prominent Detroit defense attorney Kenneth Walsh, immediately challenged the validity of the DNA evidence and questioned the chain of custody for materials that had been stored since 1988. They argued that advances in forensic technology, while impressive, could not overcome fundamental problems with evidence preservation and the passage of time. The defense also contended that their clients' alleged financial crimes, even if proven, did not constitute evidence of murder. The prosecution, however, presented a compelling narrative that connected Brennan's alleged embezzlement scheme directly to Rachel's death. According to court filings, prosecutors argued that Rachel's meticulous audit work had uncovered irrefutable evidence of Brennan's financial crimes, creating a motive for murder that had remained hidden for decades. The discovery of Rachel's safety deposit box and her detailed handwritten notes provided crucial corroboration for this theory. The case attracted significant media attention throughout southeastern Michigan and beyond. Legal experts noted that the prosecution of a murder case after such an extended period was relatively rare and highlighted the importance of advances in forensic science. The story resonated with families of other cold case victims, many of whom attended court proceedings to show support for the Thompson family. Robert Thompson, Rachel's father, had passed away in 2008, never knowing that his daughter's killer would eventually be brought to justice. However, Rachel's mother attended every court hearing, accompanied by family members and supporters who had maintained hope for resolution throughout the decades. At age 84, she had waited 27 years to see someone held accountable for her daughter's death. The legal proceedings revealed disturbing details about the scope of Brennan's alleged financial crimes. Federal investigators presented evidence suggesting that the embezzlement scheme had continued for several years after Rachel's murder, with Brennan allegedly using increasingly sophisticated methods to conceal his activities. Prosecutors argued that Rachel's death had been a calculated decision to eliminate the one person who posed a threat to his criminal enterprise. Brennan's defense team maintained his innocence throughout the proceedings, arguing that the prosecution's case relied too heavily on circumstantial evidence and outdated forensic materials. They contended that their client had been a respected member of the business community for decades and that the charges were based on speculation rather than concrete proof. The trial, which began in March 2016, lasted 6 weeks and featured testimony from dozens of witnesses, including former colleagues of both Rachel and Brennan, forensic experts, and financial investigators. The jury deliberated for 3 days before reaching their verdict on May 12, 2016. Harold Brennan was found guilty of second-degree murder and multiple counts of embezzlement and fraud. The jury foreman later told reporters that the combination of DNA evidence, financial records, and Rachel's own documented discoveries had created a compelling case for conviction. Brennan was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The resolution of Rachel's case had broader implications for the Detroit business community and law enforcement agencies. The successful prosecution demonstrated the value of preserving evidence in cold cases and highlighted how technological advances could breathe new life into seemingly hopeless investigations. Several other cold cases in the Detroit area were reopened for review using similar methodologies. For Detective Santos and the Cold Case Unit, Rachel's case became a model for how persistent investigation and modern technology could deliver justice even decades after a crime. The case also led to improved evidence storage protocols and enhanced cooperation between local and federal law enforcement agencies. The Thompson family established a scholarship fund in Rachel's memory at Northwestern University, her alma mater, to support students pursuing careers in financial services and criminal justice. The fund serves as a lasting tribute to a young woman whose dedication to her work ultimately led to her death, but also, years later, to justice being served. The resolution of Rachel Thompson's murder case in 2016 marked more than just the end of a 28-year investigation. It represented a watershed moment for cold case investigations across the United States and demonstrated how persistence, technological advancement, and meticulous evidence preservation could deliver justice even when hope seemed lost. The case prompted significant changes in how law enforcement agencies approach long-term evidence storage and cold case reviews. The Detroit Police Department implemented new protocols, requiring annual reviews of unsolved homicides, with particular attention to cases where advancing technology might provide new investigative opportunities. Similar programs were adopted by police departments throughout Michigan and other states, leading to the reopening of hundreds of cold cases nationwide. The FBI's involvement in Rachel's case also highlighted the importance of federal-local cooperation in complex investigations involving financial crimes. The success of the Joint Task Force approach led to the establishment of permanent partnerships between federal agencies and local law enforcement in major metropolitan areas. These collaborations have since resulted in the resolution of numerous cases involving white-collar crime and murder. Perhaps most significantly, Rachel's case became a teaching tool for forensic science programs at universities across the country. The combination of traditional investigative techniques, advanced DNA analysis, and digital forensics demonstrated how multiple disciplines could work together to solve seemingly impossible cases. Law enforcement academies began incorporating the Thompson case into their curricula as an example of how patience and scientific advancement could overcome the limitations of earlier investigative methods. The financial services industry also learned important lessons from Rachel's murder and the subsequent investigation. Professional organizations implemented enhanced whistleblower protections and anonymous reporting systems to encourage employees to report suspected fraud without fear of retaliation. Many firms established internal audit protocols specifically designed to detect the type of systematic embezzlement that Rachel had uncovered in her final weeks. The case had a profound impact on victim advocacy groups throughout the Midwest. Rachel's mother became a prominent spokesperson for families of cold case victims, working with legislators to secure funding for DNA testing and evidence preservation programs. Her advocacy contributed to the passage of state legislation requiring law enforcement agencies to maintain evidence in unsolved cases for extended periods and to conduct regular reviews using advancing technology. Educational institutions also felt the impact of Rachel's story. Northwestern University, her alma mater, established the Rachel Thompson Ethics in Finance program, which provides training for business students on recognizing and reporting financial crimes. The program emphasizes the moral courage required to speak up when discovering wrongdoing, even when doing so might involve personal risk. The case also influenced academic research into the psychology of white-collar crime and violence. Criminologists studied Brennan's case as an example of how financial criminals might escalate to violent crime when their schemes are threatened. This research has informed training programs for auditors and financial investigators, helping them recognize potential danger signs when investigating suspected fraud. For the Detroit business community, Rachel's case served as a sobering reminder that financial crime could have deadly consequences. The revelation that a respected executive had allegedly committed murder to conceal embezzlement shocked many who had known Brennan professionally. The case prompted soul-searching within the financial sector about the pressures and incentives that might drive individuals to commit increasingly serious crimes. The technological aspects of the case's resolution also had lasting implications. The successful use of decades-old DNA evidence encouraged law enforcement agencies to invest in advanced forensic capabilities and to maintain evidence even when cases seemed hopeless. The digital reconstruction of financial records from the 1980s demonstrated how archived data could become valuable evidence years or decades after its creation. Rachel's legacy extends beyond the criminal justice system to inspire a new generation of financial professionals who understand the importance of ethical behavior and the courage required to expose wrongdoing. Her story is taught in business ethics courses as an example of how individual integrity can have far-reaching consequences, both positive and tragic. The scholarship fund established in Rachel's memory has supported dozens of students pursuing careers in financial services and criminal justice. Recipients are required to complete coursework in ethics and fraud detection, ensuring that Rachel's commitment to professional integrity continues to influence future generations. Today, nearly a decade after Harold Brennan's conviction, Rachel Thompson's case remains a powerful reminder that justice, while sometimes delayed, can ultimately prevail. Her meticulous work habits and dedication to uncovering the truth not only led to her tragic death, but also, years later, to the resolution of her own murder and the exposure of crimes that might otherwise have remained hidden forever.